Okay, so I told you there's going to be two types of special right triangles. Yesterday was the 45, 45, 90. Today is the 30, 60, 90. Okay? All right, so yesterday, a 45, 45, 90, where did it come from? Brian? No. Where did the special right triangle come from? From a square. Right? Okay, hold on. So the 45, 45, 90 came from a square when we drew in one diagonal which bisected the two opposite angles. Now, 30, 60, 90, we now start with a triangle. Okay, now, what kind of triangle do you have? An equilateral. Brian, what else is true about an equilateral? Yep, it's equiangular. So it's regular. Very good. Okay, what do we know about those individual measurements? Right? They're all 60. Very good. All right, I'm still, however, not seeing a 30, 60, 90, correct? Okay, but if you read what this says, it says draw the altitude. Altitude is just the what? The height. So the height is going to go from this top angle down to the opposite side. And because you're going vertical to a horizontal, there is your 90 degrees. Those are the two sides that form the 90 degrees. So now I have 90 and I have 60. So what does that mean that's happening up here? It's bisecting it. Good. It's splitting it in half. So now we have our 30, 60, 90 triangle. So a 30, 60, 90 just comes from drawing an altitude in an equiangular triangle. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. So you will have to know the difference. How do you get a 45 versus how do you get the 30, 60, 90? Okay, one's a square, the other's an equiangular triangle. Easy enough, we know those shapes, no problem. All right, so let's figure out the rules. Okay, because yesterday we had the rules of x to x to x radical 2. So we're going to figure out the rules for the 30, 60, 90. Equiangular triangle, equilateral triangle, with the measurement of side lengths of 6. So in our 30, 60, 90 triangle, which side is labeled as 6? The hypotenuse, because it's opposite the 90-degree angle. Very good. Okay, now, this is my 30 up here, this is my 60 up here. How am I going to get the short and the long? Right, and when I divide my 6 by 2, what leg do I get? The short one. Because this altitude, not 2, divide by 2, that's 3. The altitude cuts that length in half. So my short leg is 3. Now, to find the long leg, I take 3 squared plus x squared is equal to 6 squared. So 9 plus x squared is equal to 36. What's 36 minus 9? 27. So x is equal to the square root of 27. Perfect square that you can take out is 9. So it's 3 radical 3. Does everybody see that? Okay. Compare those three numbers for a second. Don't say anything. Just look at those numbers real quick. If you think you have the rule, write it down. So if you think you have the rule, write it down. Travis, do you have a question? Why did you divide the 6 by 2? Because this height bisects that side. It bisects the side and yesterday. Oh. So you just cut it. Alright, so if you think you have a rule, let's check. Side lengths of 2. So we have an equilateral triangle, all side lengths of 2. which means our hypotenuse is 2. Our short leg is 1. So 1 squared plus x squared is equal to 2 squared. So 1 plus x squared is equal to 4. Is equal to 3. So what's our longest leg? Bobby?
Longest leg
is radical 3. Those who had a rule, is it still matching?
Yes.
Okay. Now, compare those numbers. Those of us who haven't seen a rule, do we see one now? Some of us kind of, we're halfway there. Let's check one more. Now we have side length of 1, so our hypotenuse is 1. What's our short leg?
0.5.
It's 1/2, so we're going to use a fraction. All right, so now it's 1/2 squared plus x squared is equal to 1 squared. What's 1/2 squared?
1/4.
1/4, good. Plus x squared. Now, I'm going to change 1 squared, so, 1, but I'm going to change that to a common denominator. And that's 4/4, right? Okay, subtract x squared is equal to
3/4.
3/4. I'm going to come over here. X is equal to the square root of 3/4, which is the same as radical 3 over radical 4. So x is equal to radical 3 over 2. Okay, so now my long leg is radical 3 over 2, but how can I rewrite that? Raise your hand when you see how we can rewrite this and how that relates to our rule from the other two. Need more light bulbs. Josie, how can I rewrite this? 1/2 times radical 3. Just like the homework when we had 1/2 times radical 2, that was radical 2 over 2. That's the same thing happening here. All right, so who thinks they have a rule? Okay, some of us have a rule. Let's write it down. So we have a 30, 60, 90 relationship. Now remember, yesterday we go smallest to greatest. Same thing happens here. So I have short leg to long leg to hypotenuse. What is our rule? Melanie? Okay, so if we want to write this as the rule, so we want to write it in the general term. So yes, the short leg is half of the hypotenuse. So what can I label my short leg as? What do we want to label it as? You go back here for a second. So yes, your short leg is half of the hypotenuse. So what do I want to label that as? What do we want to do? Just a general case. You got a phone, friend? Awesome. Sure. We can label it as W. So bottom line, that's where we want to start because we know we saw that that's the lowest number it'll be. So then Melanie said the hypotenuse is, okay, the short leg is half of the hypotenuse. So if I go the other way, what's the hypotenuse compared to the short leg?
Double.
It's double it, yep. So my hypotenuse will be 2 times W. And then what was the medium side? Yep, W times radical 3. How many saw that after the first one? After the second one? How many see it now? More important. Very good. Okay, so we go back. Are we okay seeing that? So let's go here. This is our X or our W. Sorry, we did W here. So W, then I just took W and times it by radical 3. And then here I just took and doubled our W. Doubled the W. Make sense? All right, yesterday, instead of always just writing the general case like we do here in our reference triangle, we now write the actual ratio. So our short, our long, our hypotenuse. Our hypotenuse is twice the short. Our long leg, or the medium side, is the square root of 3 times the short side. As long as you get this ratio matched up with this ratio, that's fine. Okay, now the other thing you have to pay attention to is that picture. You can't just write these anywhere you want. We write them in least to greatest order, right? Okay, so when I put that on my reference triangle, you have to still go least to greatest. You know 30, 60, 90. So A, B, and C. Why is X labeled for BC? Why not AC labeled as X? Nathan? Very good, because BC is the shortest leg. Now, other than I can see it in the picture, how do we know that? Because it's opposite the smallest angle. Very good. So essentially, in this ratio, that's the 1. Medium side is opposite the medium degree. So x radical 3, well, I plug in 1. I just get that it's radical 3 times the short leg. And then AC is my longest side because it's opposite the biggest angle. So when I plug in 1, that's where I get the 2 from. Is this making sense? Okay, so 45, 45, 90s are easy because we have 2 numbers that are the same. These have 3 separate, but do they still make sense right now? All right. Now, these 3 we've kind of already written down, so let's just go over them real quick. We know sides and opposite angles are proportional. Smallest angle is opposite the shortest side, so on and so forth. Same with the right angle being opposite the longest side. So we're good there. This is the newest information that hopefully from that last slide we wrote down. You've got to go from smallest to greatest. Do not let seeing a 3 here trip you up. It's not 3 as a whole number, it's the square root of 3, which is 1.7. 1.7 is in between 1 and 2, so it's got to be in between. It can't be bigger. Okay? So we okay here?
Yes.
All right, let's do some problems. Excuse me. All right. 90 degrees is right here. 30 is up there. 60 is right here. Now, I'm going to walk you through this one because I'm going to show you exactly what I want you to do. I want you to label what's what. So the 30, the 60, and the 90. Okay? Now, opposite the 30 degrees. That's the shortest side. So in the general case, what do I label it? X. I label it X. Opposite the 60, which is the long leg or the medium side. What do I label it? Medium side. X radical 3. That's how I got 3 radical 3. So then the hypotenuse opposite the 90 degrees is the longest side, so that's 2x. Okay, couple ways you can do this. I already know this right here. Somehow I got 3 radical 3 from an x number times by radical 3, multiplied by radical 3, right? So I can do a couple things here. I can say x radical 3 is equal to 3 radical 3 and get x by itself by dividing out radical 3. That cancels off. That cancels off. So x is 3. Or I can say, hey, these match up. So because those match up, I didn't change anything. That's my x value. And I'm done. Okay, so if I go this way, I then just take 2 times my x value to get 6. And I'm done with those 2. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, if that's not making sense, what do I always tell you to resort back to? The Pythagorean theorem. Now, You got to be careful. With the Pythagorean theorem, you have to go back to the general cases. So I have x squared plus 3 radical 3 squared is equal to 2x in parentheses and that squared. So you just have to be careful when you plug that in. So we have x squared plus, what does this guy become? Radical 3 times radical 3 is, oh, you're jumping ahead. 27, yep. Good. And then what does 2x squared become? 4x squared. Good. Okay? So then 27 is equal to how many x squared? 3x squared. Divide by 3. I'm going to come up here. So now x squared is equal to 9. X is equal to 3. I have my x. 2x equal to 2 times 3, which is 6, so I have my hypotenuse. Raise your hand if you understand one way or the other. Okay? I don't care which way you go. You can go either way. Any questions there? Okay, try this one on your own. Try this one on your own. Do you want me to leave this up or can I erase it? The first one? Leave it? Okay. Blue is one way, red is the other. They don't go together. Okay, make sure you don't confuse them. So I always want you to start doing here with your triangles. Make sure you know which one's x, which one's x radical 3, and which one's 2x. Let's see. Who needs more time? Okay. Okay, let's look at this. So what's one way you guys started going? Pythagorean theorem? Okay, how did you plug it in? Did you put it all in parentheses? Good. So I have x squared plus, what's going to happen with that x radical 3 squared? Very good. It's going to become 3x squared. Because x times x is x squared. Radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, which goes down to 3. And those are multiplied together. Right? So anytime you have that, you now know that's what it's going to be. So just kind of remember. Right? 18 times 18, 324. times 2. 648. So I have 4x squared is equal to 648. Cut that into fourths. I have 162 is equal to x squared. X is equal to the square root of 162. I can't leave it like that.
Oh, 81 and 2.
How many got square root of 81? Square root of 2. Very good. So now you can go down to 9 radical 2. Now, that's your x value. So that's what this guy is. So then, what is your x radical 3 side? Well, Connor, what do I do?
I said that, well, I just put 9 radical 3.
Very good. So then you got 9
Plus 6.
radical 6. How many got those two answers? How many went a different way but still got those? Okay? Did we just take, so this in blue, how many went 18 radical 2 is equal to 2x? Cut that in half. 9 radical 2 is what x is. Okay? There is your first answer. And then you basically just come back to that.
That's quicker.
It is a little quicker. Okay? So, any questions there? Awesome. Okay. All right. How do we feel about 30, 60, 90? Good? All right. Now, I'm going to jump to this last example because this one's a little different. So, hold on. Let me erase this. Try this one. Do you see why those are the 30 and the 60s? Why not switched around?
Yeah.
Okay. Shorter side up top, opposite that bottom angle. So try solving this one now. It was completely stuck.
I think I
Okay, which way are we going to solve this? Pythagorean theorem? Alright, what is this top side labeled? What is the hypotenuse labeled? So what's the 15 side labeled?
Whoa!
Alright, so when I plug it in, I'm going to have x squared plus 15 squared is equal to, in parentheses, 2x squared. So x squared, what's 15 squared? 25. What's 2x squared? 4x squared. 225 is equal to 3x squared. Cut 225 into thirds. 75. So x is equal to the square root of 75, which is 5 square root of 3. That's what x is. Now you gotta get what 2x is. So what is that? 10 radical 3.
Whoa.
And there are your two answers. Now, who went a different way? Okay, Travis, what did you do?
Because 15 is approximately the same thing as angle that equals x radical 3, so I just said 15 equals x radical 3, and divided 15 by radical 3 on both sides. And then I got x equals 15 radical 3 over 3, which is then x equals 5.
Write that radical. That's it. This will become 3, so these can cancel off to be 5 radical 3. So you got your x, and then you take your x and you just double it and still get 10 radical 3. Two ways to do it. Either way is perfectly fine. One's not better than the other. So any questions on 45/45 or 30/60/90? Okay, so just real quick. If I have the 30/60/90, least to greatest, short leg to long leg to hypotenuse, what's my formula? What's my rule, Brian?
X to x to x radical 3 to x.
All right, and where does a 30/60/90 triangle come from? An equilateral triangle. Good. If I ask you for the 45/45/90, that's your leg to hypotenuse. So what's my rule there?
X to x to x.
Good. X to x to x radical 2. Very good. Good.